Hi everyone, my name is Michelle and today I'm going to be explaining to you what exactly the IELTS exam is. IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System. It is an exam that tests your knowledge of the English language. It tests how well you can read, write, speak and understand the English language. There are two versions of the IELTS exam, the academic version and the general training version. The academic IELTS exam is for those who want to study abroad at a university in an English-speaking country, either at an undergraduate or postgraduate level. The general training IELTS exam is for those who want to work abroad in an English-speaking country or emigrate to an English-speaking country such as Australia or America. In the next lesson, Lesson 2, I will speak in detail about the layout of the IELTS exam. See you soon! Hi everyone, as I mentioned in my previous video, the IELTS academic test is for those who want to study abroad at a university in an English-speaking country, either at an undergraduate or postgraduate level. The IELTS academic test is also for those wanting to join a professional organisation in an English-speaking country, such as Australia or Canada. Whereas the IELTS general training exam is for those who want to work abroad in an English-speaking country or emigrate to an English-speaking country. Regardless of whether you are taking the academic version or the general training version, the layout of the exam is exactly the same. The IELTS exam consists of 4 sections or 4 tests: the listening, reading, writing and speaking. The listening, reading and writing tests will take place on the one day. You do not have any breaks between the tests, and the order of the tests may change, but you normally have the listening test first, then the reading and then the writing. Regarding the speaking test, you will sit this test up to 7 days before or after the day you have the other 3 tests. The listening and speaking tests are the exact same for both the academic and general training versions of the IELTS exam. There is no pass or fail mark in the IELTS exam. Instead, you are marked on a band scale of 1 to 9 in each of the 4 sections of the exam, with 1 being the lowest mark and 9 being the highest. Most universities have a band score requirement that falls between 5.5 and 7.0, but it is best to contact the university first to find out exactly what band score you need to study at that university. If you are doing the general training version, you will need to check the IELTS scores for immigration or visa requirements needed in the country of your choice to find out exactly what band score you need. In the videos below, I will go through each section of the IELTS exam in detail to help you achieve the highest band score possible in each of the reading, writing, listening and speaking sections of the IELTS exam. See you soon! Hi everyone, my name is Michelle and today we will be looking at how to obtain the highest possible score on the listening part of the IELTS exam. The listening test is the exact same test for both the academic and general training versions of the IELTS exam, and it is normally the first part of the IELTS exam. The listening test is 30 minutes long with an additional 10 minutes transfer time at the end of the exam to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. It is important to remember that the tape is only played once, so you need to listen carefully. There are 4 sections in the listening part of the IELTS exam, with 10 questions in each section, so 40 questions in total. It is also important to remember that each question is worth 1 mark, so the listening test is worth a total of 40 marks. You may be asked to answer multiple choice questions, label a plan, map or diagram, fill in a form, complete a table, complete a flowchart, or give short answers. Section 1 is the easiest section, and Section 4 is the hardest section. In Section 1, you will hear a conversation between 2 people, and this section tests your basic English, such as names and numbers. In Section 2, you will hear only 1 person talking. It will be on a general everyday topic, for example, speech on how to book a tour. In Section 3, you will hear anywhere from 2 to 4 speakers having a conversation in an academic situation. For example, you may hear a teacher and a student discussing an assignment, or a group of students chatting about an exam. And in Section 4, you will hear 1 person speaking about an academic subject, for example, a lecturer giving a lecture in a lecture hall. You have extra time at the end of each section to check your answers and to look at the questions in the next section before it is played. The IELTS exam is based on British English, so you will be listening to British speakers. Australian speakers, and even speakers from New Zealand. The key to getting a high mark for the listening part of the IELTS exam is understanding the layout of the exam. In other words, knowing the exam lasts 30 minutes, that there are 4 sections in the exam, that each section has 10 questions, that you will hear 2 people having a conversation in section 1 and 1 person speaking in section 2, that each question is worth 1 mark. The second key to getting a high mark for the listening test is practice. Practice as many listening IELTS exams as you can. Practice each exam over and over. The more you practice, the better you will become. In the next video, we will practice an IELTS listening exam together. Hi everyone, in this lesson we are going to practice the listening test. Please download and print off the following attachments: the question paper and the blank answer sheet. It is very important in the exam not to open the exam paper until you are told to do so. Please write your name and candidate number in the spaces at the top of the question paper and answer sheet, and then listen to the instructions for each section of the exam carefully. We will now begin the test.
Test 1. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a clerk at the inquiries desk of a transport company and a man who is asking for travel information. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Good morning, Travel Link. How can I help you?
Good morning. I live in Bayswater and I'd like to get to Harbour City tomorrow before 11 a.m.
Well, to get to Bayswater...
No, I live in Bayswater. My destination is Harbour City.
Oh, sorry, right. So that's Bayswater to Harbour City. Are you planning to travel by bus or train?
The man wants to go to Harbour City, so Harbour City has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning, Travel Link. How can I help you?
Good morning. I live in Bayswater and I'd like to get to Harbour City tomorrow before 11 a.m.
Well, to get to Bayswater...
No, I live in Bayswater. My destination is Harbour City.
Oh, sorry. Right, so that's Bayswater to Harbour City. Are you planning to travel by bus or train?
I don't mind, really. Whichever option is faster, I suppose.
Well, if you catch a railway express, they'll get you there in under an hour. Let's see. Yes, if you can make the 9:30 a.m. express, I'd recommend you do that.
Great. Which station does that leave from?
Helendale is the nearest train station to you.
Did you say Helensvale?
No, Helendale. That's Helendale.
What's the best way to get to the Helendale station then?
Well, hang on a minute while I look into that. Now, it seems to me that you have 2 options. Option 1 would be to take the 7:06 bus from the Bayswater Shopping Centre to Central Street. When you get there, you transfer to another bus which will take you to the station. Or, the second option, if you don't mind walking a couple of kilometres, is to go directly to Central Street and get straight on the bus going to the train station.
OK, which bus is that?
The 792 will take you to the station.
I guess the walk will be good for me, so that might be the better option. What time do I catch the 792?
There are 2 buses that should get you to the station on time, one just before 9 o'clock and one just after. But look, at that time of the morning it might be better to take the earlier one, just in case there's a traffic jam or something. The 8:55 is probably safer than the 9:05.
Yeah, I don't want to miss the train, so I'll be sure to get on the 5 to 9 bus.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
By the way, how much will I have to pay in fares?
Well, you can get a ticket on the bus for $1.80 cash, and you'll need $10 each way for the train. Wait, do you have a travel link card?
No, but I can get one before tomorrow.
Okay, well that'll make it considerably cheaper then. The bus will cost $1.50 each way, and the train to Harbour City will still cost $10 because you'll be travelling during peak hours in the morning, so no savings there, I'm afraid. However, if you could come back at an off-peak time...
What does that mean?
Well, if you could start your return journey before 5 p.m. or later than 7:30 in the evening...
Actually, I wasn't planning on coming back till at least 8 o'clock anyway.
Oh, in that case, you can make quite a saving if you use your travel link card. You did say you were planning to purchase one, didn't you?
Yes, I'll pick one up later today.
Good. That would mean your return train journey would only cost you $7.15 with your card.
Thank you.
Is there anything else I can help you with?
Actually, there is. Do you know if I can use the travel link card on ferries?
If you're thinking of the Harbour City ferries that go back and forth between the North and South Bank, those are the commuter ferries, then yes. A one-way trip costs $4.50, but with your card you'd make a 20% saving and only pay $3.55.
So $3.55 for the commuter ferry. What about the tour boats?
You mean the tourist ferries that go upriver on sightseeing tours? No, they only take cash or credit card. They're not part of the Travel Link company.
Oh, I see. I don't suppose you know the cost of a tour?
In actual fact, I do, because I took a friend on the trip upriver just last week. We decided on the afternoon tour, and that was $35 each, but I understand that you can do the whole day for $65.
Thank you. You've been a great help.
My pleasure. Enjoy your day out.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2. Section 2. You will hear a guidance counsellor talking to a group of students. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Hello everyone, I'm the Counselling Administrator here at St Ives College, and I've been asked to come and talk to you about our counselling team and the services that we offer. We have 3 professional counsellors here at St Ives, Louise Bagshaw, Tony Denby and Naomi Flynn. They each hold daily one-on-one sessions with students, but which counsellor you see will depend on a number of factors. If you've never used a counsellor before, then you should make an appointment with Naomi Flynn. Naomi specialises in seeing new students and offers a preliminary session where she will talk to you about what you can expect from counselling, followed by some simple questions about what you would like to discuss. This can be really helpful for students who are feeling a bit worried about the counselling process. Naomi is also the best option for students who can only see a counsellor outside office hours. She is not in on Mondays, but starts early on Wednesday mornings and works late on Thursday evenings, so you can see her before your first class or after your last class on those days. Louise staffs our drop-in centre throughout the day. If you need to see someone without a prior appointment, then she is the one to visit. Please note that if you use this service, then Louise will either see you herself or place you with the next available counsellor. If you want to be sure to see the same counsellor on each visit, then we strongly recommend you make an appointment ahead of time. You can do this at reception during office hours or by using our online booking form. Tony is our newest addition to the counselling team. He is our only male counsellor, and he has an extensive background in stress management and relaxation techniques. We encourage anyone who is trying to deal with anxiety to see him. Tony will introduce you to a full range of techniques to help you cope with this problem, such as body awareness, time management, and positive reinforcement.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
Each semester, the counselling team runs a number of small group workshops. These last for 2 hours and are free to all enrolled students. Our first workshop is called Adjusting. We've found that tertiary education can come as a big shock for some people. After the structured learning environment of school, it is easy to feel lost. In this workshop, we will introduce you to what is necessary for academic success. As you might expect, we're targeting first-year students with this offering. Getting organised follows on from the first workshop. Here, we're going to help you break the habit of putting things off, get the most out of your time, and discover the right balance between academic and recreational activities. With Getting Organised, we're catering to a broader crowd, which includes all undergraduates and postgraduates. Next up is a workshop called Communicating. The way people interact here may be quite different to what you're used to, especially if you've come from abroad. We'll cover an area that many foreign students struggle with, how to talk with teachers and other staff. We'll cover all aspects of multicultural communication. International students tend to get a lot out of this class, so we particularly encourage you to come along. But I must say that sometimes students from a local background find it helpful too, so everyone is welcome. The Anxiety Workshop is held later on in the year and deals with something you will all be familiar with, the nerves and anxiety that come when exams are approaching. Many students go through their entire academic careers suffering like this, but you don't have to. Come to this workshop and we'll teach you all about relaxation and how to breathe properly, as well as meditation and other strategies to remain calm. We've tailored this workshop to anyone who is going to sit exams. Finally, we have the Motivation Workshop. The big topic here is how to stay on target and motivated during long-term research projects. This workshop is strictly for research students, as less advanced students already have several workshops catering to their needs. Well, that's it. Thanks for your time. If you have any questions or want more information about our services, do come and see us at the counselling service.
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3. Section 3. You will hear a conversation between a tutor and 2 students who are preparing for an English literature test. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hello, Lorna, Ian. Glad you could make it. You're the only 2 who put your names down for this literature tutorial, so let's get started, shall we? I want to run over some aspects of the novel The Secret Garden with you before the test next week. Be sure to take some notes and ask questions if you need to.
Hey Lorna, have you got a spare pen?
Sure, here you are.
Okay, so the story follows 2 key characters. You should refer to them as protagonists, who go by the names of Mary Lennox and Colin Craven. The story is set shortly after the turn of the 20th century, and the narrative tracks the development of the protagonists as they learn to overcome their own personal troubles together.
That's quite a common storyline, isn't it?
Yes, you're right, Lorna. So what can you tell me about the character of Mary?
Well, in the beginning, she is an angry, rude child who was orphaned after a cholera outbreak and forced to leave India and move to the United Kingdom to her uncle's house in Yorkshire.
That's right. And there she meets Colin, who spends his days in an isolated room, believing himself to be permanently crippled, with no hope of ever gaining the ability to walk. The 2 strike up a friendship, and gradually learn, by encouraging each other, that they can both become healthy, happy, and fulfilled in life.
Will we need to remember a lot of these details for the exam?
Just the basic outline. Examiners don't want to read a plot summary. They know what the book is about. Focus on narrative techniques instead, such as point of view.
What's that mean?
It's all about how we see the story. This story, for example, is written from the perspective of what is called an omniscient narrator. Omniscient means all-knowing. So, as readers, we get to see how all the characters feel about things, what they like and don't like, and what their motivations are in the story.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
Won't it be hard to write a technical analysis? After all, it's a kid's book.
Well, it was initially pitched at adults, you know. But over the years it has become seen as a more youth-orientated work. And you're right in a sense. The simple vocabulary and absence of foreshadowing make the story very easy to follow and ideally suited for children. But that doesn't mean there isn't much to analyse. Look at the symbolism, for instance.
Symbols are things, right? Material things like objects that stand for abstract ideas.
Absolutely, yes. And the author uses many of them. There's the robin redbreast, for example, which symbolises the wise and gentle nature that Mary will soon adopt. Note that the robin is described as not at all like the birds in India. Roses are used as well, as a personal symbol for Mistress Craven. You'll see they're always mentioned alongside her name, and Mistress Craven's portrait can also be interpreted as a symbol of her spirit.
Are symbols just another name for motifs?
No, motifs are a bit different. They don't have as direct a connection with something the way that a symbol does. Motifs are simply recurring elements of the story that support the mood.
Are there any in this novel?
Yes, two very important ones. The Garden of Eden is a motif. It comes up a few times in connection with the garden of the story. And then you've got the role that secrets play in the story. In the beginning, everything is steeped in secrecy, and slowly the characters share their secrets, and in the process move from darkness to lightness, metaphorically, but also, in the case of Colin, quite literally. His room in the beginning has the curtains drawn, and he appears at the end in the brightness of the garden.
Anything else we need to know about?
Yes, nearly all novels explore universal concepts that everyone has experienced. Things like love, family, loneliness, friendship. These are called themes. The Secret Garden has a few themes that all centre on the idea of connections. The novel explores, for example, the way that health can determine and be determined by our outlook on life. As Colin's health improves, so too do his perceptions of his strength and possibility. The author also examines the link between our environment and our physical and emotional prosperity. The dark, cramped rooms of the manor house stifle the development of our protagonists. The garden and natural environments allow them to blossom, just as the flowers do. Finally, this book looks at connections between individuals, namely Mary and Colin. This necessity of human companionship is the novel's most significant theme, because none of their development as individuals would have occurred without their knowing each other. Well, that about sums it up, I think.
That's a great help, thanks.
Yes, thanks very much.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4. Section 4. You will hear a talk on the topic of time perspectives. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Today, I'm going to be talking about time. Specifically, I'll be looking at how people think about time, and how these time perspectives structure our lives. According to social psychologists, there are 6 ways of thinking about time, which are called personal time zones. The first 2 are based in the past. Past positive thinkers spend most of their time in a state of nostalgia, fondly remembering moments such as birthdays, marriages, and important achievements in their life. These are the kinds of people who keep family records, books, and photo albums. People living in the past negative time zone are also absorbed by earlier times. But they focus on all the bad things, regrets, failures, poor decisions. They spend a lot of time thinking about how life could have been. Then, we have people who live in the present. Present hedonists are driven by pleasure and immediate sensation. Their life motto is to have a good time and avoid pain. Present fatalists live in the moment too, but they believe this moment is the product of circumstances entirely beyond their control. It's their fate, whether it's poverty, religion, or society itself. Something stops these people from believing they can play a role in changing their outcomes in life. Life simply is, and that's that. Looking at the future time zone, we can see that people classified as future active are the planners and go-getters. They work rather than play and resist temptation. Decisions are made based on potential consequences, not on the experience itself. A second future-orientated perspective, future fatalistic, is driven by the certainty of life after death and some kind of a judgment day when they will be assessed on how virtuously they have lived and what success they have had in their lives. Okay, let's move on. You might ask, how do these time zones affect our lives? Well, let's start at the beginning. Everyone is brought into this world as a present hedonist. No exceptions. Our initial needs and demands, to be warm, secure, fed, and watered, all stem from the present moment. But things change when we enter formal education. We're taught to stop existing in the moment and to begin thinking about future outcomes. But did you know that every 9 seconds, a child in the USA drops out of school? For boys, the rate is much higher than for girls. We could easily say, well, boys just aren't as bright as girls. But the evidence doesn't support this. A recent study states that boys in America, by the age of 21, have spent 10,000 hours playing video games. The research suggests that they'll never fit in the traditional classroom, because these boys require a situation where they have the ability to manage their own learning environment. Now, let's look at the way we do prevention education. All prevention education is aimed at a future time zone. We say, don't smoke or you'll get cancer. Get good grades or you won't get a good job. But with present-orientated kids, that just doesn't work. Although they understand the potentially negative consequences of their actions, they persist with the behavior because they're not living for the future. They're in the moment right now. We can't use logic, and it's no use reminding them of potential fallout from their decisions or previous errors of judgment. We've got to get in their minds just as they're about to make a choice. Time perspectives make a big difference in how we value and use our time. When Americans are asked how busy they are, the vast majority report being busier than ever before. They admit to sacrificing their relationships, personal time, and a good night's sleep for their success. 20 years ago, 60% of Americans had sit-down dinners with their families, and now only 20% do. But when they're asked what they would do with an 8-day week, they say, that'd be great. They would spend that time laboring away to achieve more. They're constantly trying to get ahead, to get toward a future point of happiness. So, it's really important to be aware of how other people think about time. We tend to think, that person's really irresponsible, or that guy's power hungry. But often, what we're looking at is not fundamental differences of personality, but really just different ways of thinking about time. Seeing these conflicts as differences in time perspective, rather than distinctions of character, can facilitate more effective cooperation between people and get the most out of each person's individual strengths.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.
Now that you've completed the practice test, download the answers attached to see how well you have done. To calculate your band score for the listening test, please look at the table below. If you answer correctly 30 out of 40 of the questions, you will have a band score of 7. Remember, the key to getting a high mark in the listening test is understanding the layout of the exam and practice. It is about knowing that there are 4 sections in the test, that the test lasts 30 minutes, and that you will only hear the tape played once, which is extremely important to remember. The second key to getting a high mark in the listening test is practice. Practice as many listening IELTS exams as you can. Practice each test over and over. The more you practice, the better you will become. This is how you will increase your band score in your listening test. Hi everyone, in today's lesson we will be looking at how to do well on the academic reading test. As the reading tests are different for the academic and general training versions of the IELTS exam, we are going to cover them in separate videos. This lesson is only for those who are doing the academic version of the IELTS exam. If you are doing the general training version of the IELTS exam, please look at the IELTS General Training Reading Test video. Okay, let's get started. The academic reading test is 60 minutes long. It is normally the second part of the IELTS exam after the listening test. There are 3 sections with 40 questions in total, and each question is worth 1 mark. So the reading test is worth 40 marks in total. It is important to remember that you do not get extra time at the end of the test to fill in the answer sheet. You have to fill in the answer sheet during the 60 minutes of the test. Unlike the listening test, you do not get extra time at the end of this test. You should spend no more than 20 minutes on each section. So there's 3 sections, so 20 minutes on each is 60 minutes in total. The texts that will come up in the reading test are all taken from books, newspapers, journals and magazines. All the topics are of general interest and are relevant to students entering university. Section 1 is the easiest section and section 3 is the hardest. So you should spend the most time on section 3 as it is the most difficult section. Each section has 1 passage, so there are 3 passages in total on the reading test. In section 1, you have 13 questions to answer. In section 2, you have again 13 questions to answer. And in section 3, you have 14 questions to answer. For some students, the reading test can be quite overwhelming, as it can be quite difficult to read the 3 passages in full and answer all 40 questions in the 60-minute period. My top tip for the reading test is to only read the title of the passage so that you know what the text is about, and then go and read the questions. Underline keywords in the questions and then scan the text for the answer. Take each question one at a time, but spend no longer than 15 minutes on each section to ensure you answer all sections. You should try really hard not to leave any blank answers, as the examiner cannot give you marks if you write nothing. The types of questions you may be asked to answer are multiple choice questions, short answer questions, sentence completion, whereby you simply complete the sentence, write about a writer's views or claims, fill in or label diagrams, match a heading with the correct paragraph, or match phrases. Remember that the reading test is only 60 minutes, so for that 60-minute period, concentrate really hard on what you are doing, as you do not have time to waste. In the next lesson, we will go through in depth an actual IELTS academic reading test question. See you soon.
Hi, in this lesson we are going to practice an academic reading test together. Please download and print off the following attachments: the question paper and the blank answer sheet. It is very important in the exam not to open the question paper until you are told to do so. Please write your name and candidate number in the spaces at the top of the question paper and answer sheet. Okay, now let's read the instructions. It says, do not open the question paper until you are told to do so, which you already know. Write your name and candidate number in the spaces at the top of the page, which you should have already done. Then it says, read the instructions for each part of the paper carefully. Answer all the questions. Write your answers on the answer sheet. Use a pencil. You must complete the answer sheet within the time limit, which is 60 minutes, which again is something you already know. At the end of the test, hand in both the question paper and your answer sheet. Once you have read these instructions, we will begin. So first we have the reading passage 1. It says you should spend about 20 minutes on questions 1 to 13, which are based on reading passage 1 below. You should be feeling quite confident at the moment, as you already know from the previous video that you should spend 20 minutes on each section and that there are 13 questions in section 1, the first text. Now try to remember what else I said in the previous video. I said my top tip for the reading test is to only read the title of the passage so that you know what the text is about, and then go and read the questions. Underline any keywords in the questions and then scan the text for the answer. So go back to the question paper and read the title of the first passage. It's called Making Time for Science. Now go to the end of the passage and look at questions 1 to 13. Read question 1. It says, do the following statements agree with the information given in reading passage 1? In boxes 1 to 7 on your answer sheet, write true if the statement agrees with the information, false if the statement contradicts the information, or not given if there is no information on this. Let's look at number 1. Number 1 states, chronobiology is the study of how living things have evolved over time. Now that you have read the question, you need to underline any keywords. I would underline chronobiology, living things, and evolved. Once you have underlined these, go back to the beginning of the passage and scan the passage for these words. It should be in the first paragraph. If you read it, it says, chronobiology might sound a little futuristic, like something from a science fiction novel, perhaps, but it's actually a field of study that concerns one of the oldest processes life on this planet has ever known, short-term rhythms of time and their effect on flora and fauna. Therefore, we can see that statement number 1 is false. Quickly go to your answer sheet and write false for the first answer. Then go back and read statement 2 in the questions. Statement number 2 says, the rise and fall of sea levels affects how sea creatures behave. Underline any keywords. Here I would underline rise, fall, sea levels, and sea creatures. Again, return to the passage and scan the text for the answer. A quick tip is that answer 2 should appear after answer 1 in the text, so there is probably no need to read paragraph 1 again. If you read it, it says, this can take many forms. Marine life, for example, is influenced by tidal patterns. As sea creatures are marine life, then statement number 2 is through. Again, go to your answer sheet and write through for the second answer. Then go back and read statement 3 in the questions. Statement 3 says, most animals are active during the daytime. Again, underline any keywords. Here I would underline animals, active, and daytime. Keywords are words that are key to you finding your answer in the passage. We underline them so that they will focus your mind when you go to search the text for the answer. Again, return to the passage and scan the text for these words. Answer 3 should appear after answer 2 in the text, so start reading from where you got answer 2 from. It says, animals tend to be active or inactive depending on the position of the sun or moon. Numerous creatures, humans included, are largely diurnal, that is, they like to come out during the hours of sunlight. It doesn't actually say. So again, quickly go to your answer sheet and write not given for the third answer. Then go back and read statement 4 in the questions. Statement 4 says, circadian rhythms identify how we do different things on different days. Again, underline any key words. Here I would underline circadian rhythms. Then return to the passage and scan the text for these words. When it comes to humans, chronobiologists are interested in what is known as the circadian rhythm. This is the complete cycle our bodies are naturally geared to undergo within the passage of a 24-hour day. Students often feel like they are being asked trick questions. Once you find the words in the text, I would recommend comparing what you are being asked to what is in the text. So read the statement again and then read the relevant piece in the passage to try to determine your answer. We can see that statement 4 is false, as circadian rhythm is the complete cycle our bodies go through in a 24-hour period, not how they do different things on different days. So statement 4 is false. You need to go to the answer sheet and write under the fourth answer that statement 4 is false. Then go back to the question paper and look at number 5. Statement 5 says, a night person can still have a healthy circadian rhythm. Again, you need to say whether this statement agrees with the information given in the reading passage. So first, underline any keywords in the statement. I would underline the words night person and healthy circadian rhythm. Then return to the passage and scan the text for these words. Not everyone has an identical circadian rhythm. Night people, for example, often describe how they find it very hard to operate during the morning, but become alert and focused by evening. So we can see from this that statement 5 is true. So go to your answer sheet and write true for the fifth answer. Then go back to the question paper and read statement 6. Statement number 6 says, new therapies can permanently change circadian rhythms without causing harm. So firstly, underline any keywords in the statement. I would underline new therapies and permanently change. You are underlining keywords to focus your mind when it comes to scanning the text for the answer. Okay, now return to the question paper and scan the text for these keywords. Remember that the answer will appear after the answer from number 5. So you do not need to read anywhere before this. It says, scientists have limited the abilities to create durable modifications of chronobiological demands. Recent therapeutical developments for humans, such as artificial light machines and melatonin administration, can reset our circadian rhythms, for example, but our bodies can tell the difference, and health suffers when we breach these natural rhythms for extended periods of time. So we can see from reading this section that statement 6 is false. So quickly go to your answer sheet and write false for the sixth answer. Then go back to the question paper and read statement 7. Now let's look at statement 7. Statement 7 says, naturally produced vegetables have more nutritional value. Again, underline any keywords in the statement. I would underline naturally produced vegetables and more nutritional value. Now return to the passage and scan the text for these keywords. It says that studies demonstrate that vegetables grown in season and ripened on the tree are far higher in essential nutrients than those grown in greenhouses and ripened by laser. So we can see from reading this that statement 7 is true. So on your answer sheet, write true for the 7th answer. Then return to the question paper. Okay, now let's look at questions 8 to 13. For questions 8 to 13, it says to choose the correct letter, A, B, C, or D. Write the correct letter in boxes 8 to 13 on your answer sheet. Okay. Question 8 says, what did researchers identify as the ideal time to wake up in the morning? A, 6:04, B, 7 a.m., C, 7:22, or D, 7:30. Again, underline any keywords. I would underline ideal time, wake up, and morning. Now go back up to the passage and scan the text for the answer. Remember that the answer to question 8 will be after the part where we found the answer for number 7. So you only need to read from this point. So if we read from this point, it says, knowledge of chronobiological patterns can have many pragmatic implications for our day-to-day lives. While contemporary living can sometimes appear to subjugate biology, after all, who needs circadian rhythms when we have caffeine pills, energy drinks, shift work, and cities that never sleep? Keeping in sync with our body clock is important. The average urban resident, for example, rouses at the eye-blaring time of 6:04 a.m., while researchers believe to be far too early. One study found that even rising at 7 a.m. has deleterious effects on health unless exercise is performed for 30 minutes afterward. The optimum moment has been whittled down to 7:22 a.m. Muscle aches, headaches, and moodiness were reported to be lowest by participants in the study who awoke then. We can see from the text that the ideal time to wake up in the morning identified by researchers is 7:22 a.m. So the answer is C. On your answer sheet, you should write the letter C for the 8 answer, then return to the question paper.
Question 9 says, in order to lose weight, we should A. Avoid eating breakfast, B. Eat a low carbohydrate breakfast, C. Exercise before breakfast, or D. Exercise after breakfast. Again, underline any keywords. I would underline lose weight here. Now go back up to the passage and scan the text for the answer. Remember that the answer to question 9 will be after the part where we found the answer for question 8. So you only need to read from this point. So if we read from this point, it says, once you're up and ready to go, what then? If you're trying to shed some extra pounds, dietitians are adamant, never skip breakfast. This disorients your circadian rhythm and puts your body in starvation mode. The recommended course of action is to follow an intense workout with a carbohydrate-rich breakfast. The other way round and weight loss results are not as pronounced. We can see from reading the text that they are saying to exercise first and then eat breakfast, and that if you do it the other way round, i.e. eat breakfast first and then exercise, that you won't see the same results. So the answer here is C, exercise before breakfast. On your answer sheet, you should write C for the 9th answer and then return to the question paper. Question 10 says, which is not mentioned as a way to improve supplement absorption? A. Avoiding drinks containing caffeine while taking supplements. B. Taking supplements at breakfast. C. Taking supplements with foods that can dissolve them. Or D. Storing supplements in a cool, dry environment. Again, underline any key words. I would underline not mention and improve supplement absorption. Now go back up to the passage and scan the text for the answer. Remember that the answer to question 10 will be after the part where we found the answer for question 9. So you only need to read from this point. So if we read from this point, it says, morning is also great for breaking out the vitamins. Supplement absorption by the body is not temporal dependent, but naturopath Pam Stone notes that the extra boost at breakfast helps us get energized for the day ahead. For improved absorption, Stone suggests pairing supplements with a food in which they are soluble and steering clear of caffeinated beverages. Finally, Stone wants to take care with storage. High potency is best for absorption, and warmth and humidity are known to deplete the potency of a supplement. In this question, we are looking for which one of the statements is not mentioned, so the best thing to do is to mark off which statement is mentioned and see which statement we have left. It says, for improved absorption, Stone suggests pairing supplements with a food in which they are soluble and steering clear of caffeinated beverages. Finally, Stone warns to take care with storage. High potency is best for absorption, and warmth and humidity are known to deplete the potency of a supplement. So we can see that the only statement we have left is B, taking supplements at breakfast. So the answer is B, as this was not mentioned. So on your answer sheet, you should write B for the 10th answer and then return to the question sheet. Okay, now let's look at question 11. Question 11 says, the best time to stop drinking coffee is A, mid-afternoon, B, 10 p.m., C, only when feeling anxious, or D, after dinner. Again, underline any keywords. I would underline best time and stop drinking coffee. Now go back up to the passage and scan the text for the answer. Remember that the answer to question 11 will be after the part where we found the answer for question 10. So you only need to read from this point. So if we read from this point, it says, after the dinner, espressos are becoming more of a tradition. We have the Italians to thank for that. But to prepare for a good night's sleep, we are better off putting the brakes on caffeine consumption as early as 3 p.m. With a 7-hour half-life, a cup of coffee containing 90 milligrams of caffeine taken at this hour could still leave 45 milligrams of caffeine in your nervous system at 10 o'clock that evening. It is essential that by the time you are ready to sleep, your body is rid of all traces. We can see from the text that the best time to stop drinking coffee is as early as 3 p.m., which would be mid-afternoon, so the answer would be A. Therefore, on your answer sheet, you should write A for the 11th answer and then return to the question paper. Question 12 says, in the evening, we should A, stay away from carbohydrates, B, stop exercising, C, eat as much as possible, or D, eat a light meal. Again, underline any keywords. I would underline in the evening. Remember, keywords are just to help focus your mind in searching the text to try find the answer. Now go back up to the passage and scan the text for the answer. Remember that the answer to question 12 will be after the part where we found the answer for question 11. So you only need to read from this point. So if we read from this point, it says, evenings are important for winding down before sleep. However, dietitian Geraldine Gorgo warns that an after 5 carbohydrate fast is more cultural myth than chronobiological demand. This will deprive your body of vital energy needs. Overloading your gut could lead to indigestion, though our digestive tracts do not shut down for the night entirely, but their work slows to a crawl as our bodies prepare for sleep. Consuming a modest snack should be entirely sufficient. We can see from the text that the answer is D, eat a light meal, as it says in the last line that consuming a modest snack should be entirely sufficient. Question 13 is the final question on part 1 of the reading test. It says, which of the following phrases best describe the main aim of reading passage? 1. A, to suggest healthier ways of eating, sleeping and exercising. B, to describe how modern life has made chronobiology largely irrelevant. C, to introduce chronobiology and describe some practical applications. Or D, to plan a daily schedule that can alter our natural chronobiological rhythms. For this question, I would read the entire text quickly and decide which point they talk about the most. So, let's read it. Making time for science. Chronobiology might sound a little futuristic, like something from a science fiction novel perhaps, but it's actually a field of study that concerns one of the oldest processes life on this planet has ever known, short-term rhythms of time and their effect on flora and fauna. This can take many forms. Marine life, for example, is influenced by tidal patterns. Animals tend to be active or inactive depending on the position of the sun or moon. Numerous creatures, humans included, are largely diurnal. That is, they like to come out during the hours of sunlight. Nocturnal animals such as bats and possums prefer to forage by night. A third group are known as crepuscular. They thrive in the low light of dawn and dusk and remain inactive at other hours. When it comes to humans, chronobiologists are interested in what is known as the circadian rhythm. This is the complete cycle our bodies are naturally geared to undergo within the passage of a 24-hour day. Aside from sleeping at night and waking during the day, each cycle involves many other factors such as changes in blood pressure and body temperature. Not everyone has an identical circadian rhythm. Night people, for example, often describe how they find it very hard to operate during the morning but become alert and focused by evening. This is a benign variation within circadian rhythms known as chronotype. Scientists have limited abilities to create durable modifications of chronobiological demands. Recent therapeutic developments for humans, such as artificial light machines and melatonin administration, can reset our circadian rhythms, for example, but our bodies can tell the difference, and health suffers when we breach these natural rhythms for extended periods of time. Plants appear no more malleable in this respect. Studies demonstrate that vegetables grown in season and ripened on the tree are far higher in essential nutrients than those grown in greenhouses and ripened by laser. Knowledge of chronobiological patterns can have many pragmatic implications for our day-to-day lives. While contemporary living can sometimes appear to subjugate biology, after all, who needs circadian rhythms when we have caffeine pills, energy drinks, shift work, and cities that never sleep? Keeping in sync with our body clock is important. The average urban resident, for example, rouses at the eye-blearing time of 6:04 a.m., which researchers believe to be far too early. One study found that even rising at 7 a.m. has deleterious effects on health unless exercise is performed for 30 minutes afterward. The optimum moment has been whittled down to 7:22 a.m. Muscle aches, headaches, and moodiness were reported to be lowest by participants in the study who awoke then. Once you're up and ready to go, what then? If you're trying to shed some extra pounds, dietitians are adamant never skip breakfast. This disorients your circadian rhythm and puts your body in starvation mode. The recommended course of action is to follow an intense workout with a carbohydrate-rich breakfast. The other way round, and weight loss results are not as pronounced. Morning is also great for breakfast, for breaking out the vitamins. Supplement absorption by the body is not temporal dependent, but naturopath Pam Stone notes that the extra boost at breakfast helps us to get energized for the day ahead. For improved absorption, Stone suggests pairing supplements with a food in which they are soluble and steering clear of caffeinated beverages. Finally, Stone warns to take care with storage. High potency is best for absorption, and warmth and humidity are known to deplete the potency of a supplement. After dinner, espressos are becoming more of a tradition. We have the Italians to thank for that. But to prepare for a good night's sleep, we are better off putting the brakes on caffeine consumption as early as 3 p.m. With a 7-hour half-life. A cup of coffee containing 90 milligrams of caffeine taken at this hour could still leave 45 milligrams of caffeine in your nervous system at 10 o'clock that evening. It is essential that by the time you are ready to sleep, your body is rid of all traces. Evenings are important for winding down before sleep. However, dietitian Geraldine Gorgo warns that an after 5 carbohydrate fast is more cultural myth than chronobiological demand. This will deprive your body of vital energy needs. Overloading your gut could lead to indigestion, though. Our digestive tracts do not shut down for the night entirely, but their work slows to a crawl as our bodies prepare for sleep. Consuming a modest snack should be entirely sufficient. From reading the text, I would say that the phrase which best describes the main aim of the reading passage is C, to introduce chronobiology and describe some practical applications. So in your answer sheet, I would write C for the 13th answer. Now that we've gone through section 1 together, try section 2 and section 3 of the reading test on your own to see how you get on. Remember, my top tip for the reading test is to only read the title of the passage so that you know what the text is about, and then go on and read the questions. Underline any keywords in the questions and then scan the text for the answer. Please note that sometimes the answer will be hidden in the text, so scanning the text for keywords will not work. If you can't find the keywords when you scan the text, then you will need to read the passage paragraph by paragraph to fully understand what the writer is talking about to try find the answer to the question. I have attached all the answers to the reading test in this lecture so that you can check your answers for section 2 and section 3, so please feel free to access these. The best way to prepare for the reading test is to practice as many IELTS reading test questions as possible. Best of luck, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Hi everyone, my name is Michelle, and in today's lesson we are going to be talking about the IELTS Academic Writing Test, Task 1. This lesson is specifically for those doing the academic version of the IELTS exam, so if you are doing the General Training IELTS exam, please exit this video and look at the video called IELTS General Training Writing Exam. Okay, let's get started. You have two tasks to do in the IELTS Academic Writing Test, Task 1 and Task 2. In Task 1, you will be given either a graph, a pie chart, a diagram, or a table that shows information about a topic. You will be asked to write a report on what you see in at least 150 words. This is very important. It must be at least 150 words. If you write less than 150 words, then there is no way you can get a band score of 9 because you didn't complete the task properly. It has to be at least 150 words. To get the highest possible score in your report, you need to give an introduction, summarize the most important points in the diagram, and compare and contrast the most important changes in that diagram. To get a high score on Task 1, you need to understand how you are being marked. You will be marked on your ability to answer the question, on your grammar and vocabulary, as well as your ability to structure your answer and use connective words. Structuring your answer means having an introduction, summary of important points, and comparing and contrasting the changes. Connective words are words that link sentences and paragraphs to improve the flow of your writing. Here are some examples of connective words. To begin with, however, and for instance. The writing exam is 60 minutes in total, so you should spend 20 minutes on Task 1 as it is worth 150 marks. You should spend the other 40 minutes on Task 2 as it is worth a lot more marks, 250 marks to be precise. In the next video, we're going to look at an example exam question of Task 1 and how to answer it. Check out the next video and download the attachments to practice with me. See you soon. Hi everyone, in this lesson we are going to go through Task 1 of the Academic Writing Test and show you what a model answer would look like. Please download and print off the following attachments, the question paper and the blank answer sheet. It is very important in the exam not to open the question paper until you are told to do so. Please write your name and candidate number in the spaces at the top of the question paper and answer sheet. Once you have done this, we will begin. Okay, let's get started. For Task 1, it says you should spend about 20 minutes on this task, which you already know from the previous video. Then it says the graphs below gives information about computer ownership as a percentage of the population between 2002 and 2010, and by level of education for the years 2002 and 2010. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Write at least 150 words, which again is something you already know from my previous video. Okay, let's get started. As I mentioned in my previous video, to get the highest possible score in your report, you need to give an introduction, summarize the most important points in the diagram, and then compare and contrast the most important changes in the diagram. So let's look at the first part of your report, the introduction. Your introduction is the most important paragraph in your report as it shows the examiner if you understand the question. To get a high mark in your report, all you need to do is inform the examiner as to what the diagram is showing you. In other words, tell the examiner what you see. All you have to do is simply paraphrase the title of the graph and include a time frame if there is one. Your introduction only needs to be 1 or 2 sentences that state what the IELTS Writing Task 1 shows. So a perfect introduction would be: the bar charts show data about computer ownership with a further classification by level of education from 2002 to 2010. This is a perfect introduction. Now read what they are asking you to do again. They are asking you to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. In the previous video, I told you that to get the highest score possible, you should give an introduction, which we have, summarize the most important points in the diagram, which they are asking us to do here, and then compare and contrast the most important changes in this diagram, which again is something they are asking us to do here. Let's focus on the second paragraph of our report, summarizing the most important points in the diagram. Here, just simply describe what you see happening. So, for example, a perfect answer would be: a steady but significant rise can be seen in the percentage of the population that owned a computer over the period. Just over half the population owned computers in 2002, whereas by 2010, 3 out of 4 people had a home computer. To do well in task 1 of the writing exam, it is important to be able to understand the information shown in diagrams and graphs. You can see from the bar chart that in 2002, more than 50% of the population had computers. This is why in our report we say just over half the population owned computers in 2002. It is simply another way to say 50% of the population. When we say by 2010, 3 out of 4 people had a computer, we can see this by looking at 2010 on the bar chart and seeing that 70% of the population had a computer. 70 divided by 80 is the same as 3 over 4. So this is where we get 3 out of 4 people, because you cannot have half a person. In our third paragraph of our report, we need to compare and contrast the information shown to us. For this part of the report, you need to analyse the information. In other words, look for similarities and differences, look at the graphs and try to identify what is similar and what's different. And give figures and details. Give specific details by making reference to the data on the graphs. A perfect response to this part would be: an analysis of the data by level of education shows that higher levels of education correspond to higher levels of computer ownership in both of those years. In 2002, only around 15% of those who did not finish high school had a computer, but this figure had trebled by 2010. There were also considerable increases of approximately 30% for those with a high school diploma or an unfinished college education, reaching 65% and 85% respectively in 2010. However, graduates and postgraduates proved to have the greatest level of ownership in 2010 at 90% and 95% respectively, 20% higher than in 2002. Although it is not necessary to give a conclusion in task 1 of the writing test, I always tell my students to try and give one sentence as an ending to the report. For example, in this question, the ending suggested by the model answer given by IELTS is: the last decade has seen a substantial growth in computer ownership in general. And across all education levels, this is the end of the report. The best way to practice for the writing test of the IELTS exam is to get yourself a set of IELTS exam papers and practice the writing test questions over and over again. I've also attached extra test questions in this lecture for you to practice, so feel free to access them. In the next lesson, we will look at task 2 of the IELTS academic writing test. See you soon. Hi, in today's lesson, we are going to be talking about task 2 of the IELTS academic writing test. Again, this lesson is specifically for those doing the academic version of the IELTS exam. If you are doing the general training version of the IELTS exam, please exit this video and look at the video called IELTS General Training Writing Test Task 2. Okay, let's begin. In Task 2 of the IELTS academic writing test, you have to write a response to the question, giving reasons and examples to support your answer. It is an essay-style question, and the topics are always of general interest. You have 40 minutes to write your essay, and you must write at least 250 words. Again, this is a very important point. When they say write at least 250 words, then it must be at least 250 words. If you write less than 250 words, then there is no way you can get a band score of 9 because you didn't complete the task properly. It has to be at least 250 words. Something else that is really important is to not try to memorize model answers for the writing test, as it won't help you. The examiner will see that you are not answering the question you are being asked and will fail you. I have seen this happen so many times, so it is really important that you don't try to memorize model answers, as it won't work. In the next video, I will talk you through how to answer a Task 2 test question, and I will give you tips on what to do and what not to do. See you soon. Hi everyone, in this lesson we are going to practice Task 2 of the IELTS academic writing test. For many students, this is the hardest part of the IELTS exam. Before we start, please download and print off the following attachments: the question paper and the blank answer sheet. As I have mentioned before, it is very important in the exam not to open the question paper until you are told to do so. However, as this is the second part of the writing test, i.e. Task 2, you have already written your name and candidate number in the spaces on the top of the question paper and answer sheet from completing Task 1. The essay you have to write for Task 2 may look very difficult when you read the question, but it is no different to writing any other essay. As long as you answer what you are being asked, you are halfway to getting your level 9 band score. Okay, let's get started. For Task 2, it says you should spend about 40 minutes on this task, which is something you already know from the previous lesson. Then it tells you to write about the following topic. It says, a person's worth nowadays seems to be judged according to social status and material possessions. Old-fashioned values such as honour, kindness, and trust no longer seem important. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. Again, from the previous lesson, we know that we would have to give reasons and examples to support our answer. Then it says write at least 250 words, which we know from the previous lesson means that it must be at least 250 words. To get the highest possible score in Task 2, you need to understand how you are being marked. You will be marked on your ability to answer the question, on your grammar and vocabulary, as well as your ability to structure your essay and use connected words. Structuring your essay means having an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Your body needs to be 2 paragraphs, no more and no less. Connective words are words that link sentences and paragraphs to improve the flow of your writing. Here are some examples of connective words. To begin with, however, and for instance. Okay, let's get started. The first thing we have to write is our introduction. Your introduction only needs to be a few sentences that state some basic facts and whether you agree or disagree with the statement. I always tell my students to try and keep your introduction to 3 sentences. Your introduction is the most important paragraph in your essay, as it shows the examiner if you understand the question. To get a high mark in your essay, all you need to do is simply paraphrase the statement, give some basic facts, and say whether you agree or disagree. So our introduction will be something like, given the power and influence of the super rich, it might seem as if social status and material possessions are the new symbols of personal wealth, but in everyday life, I do not think this is true. This is a perfect introduction and is the model answer provided by IELTS for this question. Now that we've done the introduction, we can move on to the body of the essay. The body of the essay must consist of 2 paragraphs. Now read what they are asking you to do again. They are asking you, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Give reasons for your answer and relevant examples. Okay, so where do you start? You know you have to write 2 paragraphs, but what do you write about? Where do you start? Well, something I tell my students is that each paragraph should have one main idea and you use sentences to support this idea. So essentially you are talking about one thing in each paragraph and using reasons and examples in that paragraph to support that idea. Let's look at the model answer for the first paragraph provided by IELTS. It is apparent that most celebrities today are admired or envied solely for their material wealth or position in various social hierarchies. Many of these people are known to turn their backs on friends, cheat on spouses, or spend their evenings overindulging in alcohol and or drugs. Things like owning a mansion, driving an expensive car, and getting into A-list parties are exalted above old-fashioned values. Ultimately, though, it is the many readers of gossip magazines and celebrity blogs who reinforce these ideas. Now that you've written your first paragraph, we now need to look at the second paragraph. A perfect answer for this next paragraph, as provided by IELTS, would be: nevertheless, I do believe that in their day-to-day lives, most people still believe in values, such as honour, kindness, and trust. In some ways, most of us want to form loving families, raise our children to be good citizens, stand up for the underprivileged, and protect our communities from harm. We still form friendships, romances, and business partnerships based on old-fashioned criteria. When our trust is abused or we are unfairly treated, we see this as a major violation of our relationship and we judge the wrongdoer accordingly. The last part of your essay is your conclusion. Your conclusion should be short and relevant. Many students struggle with the conclusion as they do not know what to write and in turn often write too much or too little. Like your introduction, I would try to keep your conclusion to no more than 3 sentences. In your conclusion, you should give a concluding phrase, give your opinion, and use information from the body of your essay to support your opinion. It is important to reword this information from the body of the essay to show the examiner you are worthy of a band score of 9. The conclusion in the model answer provided by IELTS for this question is the following. In conclusion, I believe there is some truth to the notion that status and possessions have superseded old-fashioned values as a measure of a person's wealth. Looking beyond the tabloids, however, it is apparent that most ordinary people have still preserved an old-fashioned conscience. This is the end of your essay. To do well on task 2 of the writing test, it is important to structure your essay correctly. In other words, having an introduction, 2 paragraphs in the body of your essay, and a conclusion. Don't write too much and don't write too little. The examiner is looking for quality, not quantity. Write clearly. Read the question carefully. Plan what you are going to say. Spend more time on task 2 than on task 1. Make sure what you are writing is grammatically correct. Don't have any spelling mistakes. Use connective words where possible. Practice as many IELTS academic writing test task 2 questions as possible. Best of luck, and I'll see you in the next lesson. In today's lesson, I will be explaining to you what exactly happens in the IELTS speaking test and the type of questions you are asked. Whether you are taking the IELTS academic exam or the IELTS general training exam, the speaking test is the exact same for both exams. The IELTS speaking test is a one-to-one conversation with you and the examiner. It is basically an interview whereby the interviewer will ask you a series of questions. The test takes 11 to 14 minutes and is recorded. There are 3 parts to the speaking test. In part 1, the examiner introduces himself or herself and checks your name. Then the examiner asks you a series of questions about yourself, your family, your work, what you study, your friends, and your hobbies. The types of questions you will be asked are: where are you from? Describe yourself. Tell me about your family. Why are you studying English? Part 1 usually lasts about 4 to 5 minutes and is the easiest part of the test. In part 2 of the speaking test, the examiner will give you a written task card which will ask you to speak about a particular topic and include points that you must include in your talk. You will get 1 minute to prepare your talk before you have to speak. You will then speak for 1 to 2 minutes, and after this, your examiner will ask you 1 or 2 questions. In this task card, you are asked to talk about a subject you are studying, and underneath it are 4 points that they would like you to include in your talk on the topic. What subject are you studying? What is the subject about? How do you feel about it? And explain why you are interested in it. Part 2 of the speaking test usually takes about 3 to 4 minutes, and this includes your minute to prepare. Part 2 is harder than Part 1 as it tests your ability to talk about a particular topic, develop your ideas about this topic, as well as testing your ability to use relevant grammar and vocabulary in expressing your opinion. Then you will have Part 3, which is the final part of the speaking test. In Part 3, the examiner will ask you questions linked to the topic you spoke about in Part 2. The types of questions you may be asked based on the example task card in this lesson are: what are the pros and cons of the current education system in your country? Do you think students respect their teachers? And how would you like to change the education system? Part 3 is a two-way discussion between you and the examiner, but you are expected to do most of the speaking. My top tips for the speaking test are to give a friend a list of exam-style questions and get them to ask you questions that come up in the speaking test. Number 2, keep eye contact with the examiner. You are having a conversation with someone, so looking at them when you are speaking to them is very important. Number 3, be confident. If you think you are going to do well, then you will do well. Try not to get nervous as you only have 12 minutes to show the examiner that you are well able to speak English. Before you go in to do your speaking test, tell yourself, I can do this. Number 4, expand your answers. Don't give one-word answers such as yes or no. You have 12 minutes to prove to the examiner that you are well able to speak English. The examiner can only assess your speaking for that 12-minute period, so speak as much as you can. Number 5, instead of responding to every question with yes or no, use expressions like in my opinion or I really feel. Number 6, practice. I have attached a document called IELTS Speaking Test Questions to this lecture. Print off the questions and prepare answers to these common questions that are asked in the speaking test. The more you practice, the more confident you will become and the stronger you will be on the day of your speaking test. In the next lesson, I will show you a video of what happens in a real IELTS speaking test so that you can see the types of answers you would be expected to give to achieve a band score of 9. See you in the next lesson. Hi everyone, in this lesson I'm going to show you what happens in an actual IELTS speaking test and the types of questions you may be asked. Please watch and listen carefully to the answers given, as these are the types of answers you would need to give to achieve a band score of 9. Yes, come in.
Hello.
Hi, please have a seat.
Thank you.
Welcome to the speaking section of the IELTS exam. My name is Michelle. I will be asking you some questions. For marking purposes, I'm going to record the interview. Is that okay?
Yes, no problem.
Okay, let's begin. So, can we start with your full name, please?
Yes, my name is John Doyle.
Nice to meet you, John.
You too?
May I see your passport, please?
Yes, here you are.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so I will ask you some questions. This will take about 12 to 15 minutes and I'll give you instructions along the way. Are you ready to begin?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you tell me about your hometown?
Yes, I am from a little town called Tralee in Kerry, which is on the southwest coast of Ireland. It has a population of approximately 20,000 people. It has some of Ireland's most iconic scenery, so it's a great place to live.
Wow, it sounds amazing. Can you tell me about places of special interest in Kerry?
Well, the most famous of all would have to be the Ring of Kerry. It is Ireland's most scenic route. It has a 179-kilometre long tourist route and shows the best of Kerry. There are many popular places along the route, including the Killarney National Park, which was the first national park established in Ireland. The park is full of red deer and is the largest forest in Ireland. It is extremely beautiful.
What kind of jobs do people do in Kerry?
Well, we have a lot of farmers, as it is a rural part of Ireland, but we also have doctors, journalists, teachers and bankers. Education is really important in Ireland, and most people go to university when they finish high school to ensure they secure good jobs that are well paid.
What would be the best time to visit Kerry?
The best time to visit Kerry would be between June and August, as these are our summer months. However, it does not get very warm in Ireland, so you can come any time of the year.
Okay, can you compare your hometown with another city?
Yes. Well, I live in Melbourne now, which is very different from my hometown of Kerry. Firstly, the population is quite different. There are over 4 million people residing in Melbourne compared to 20,000 in Kerry. You rarely see the same person twice, which is quite odd, so it's hard to make friends. Life is much faster over here compared to back home. Everyone is in a hurry. However, there is always something to do in Melbourne every weekend, which I love, and the weather is always beautiful. The sun is always shining, and this is something we could do with more of back home. There are pros and cons to every city, but home will always be home.
Okay, John. I'd like to ask you a few questions about what you do now. Can you tell me, do you work or are you a student?
Yes, I am a student. I have been studying English at a university in the city for the past few months. It is an IELTS preparation course, and I have really enjoyed the course and I have learned so much. I hope to apply to do a business degree at the same university when I pass the IELTS exam, as it is a fantastic university and I have made a lot of friends there.
Why do you want to study business?
I love everything about business. It really excites me. My father owns his own company and is quite successful, so I would like to follow in his footsteps. It is a 4-year degree and I expect it to be quite challenging at times, but I am really looking forward to it. I have done a lot of research on the course to make sure it is right for me. In the first 2 years of the degree, you study all elements of business, from marketing and accounting to HR. Then in your 3rd year you specialise. You also get the opportunity to work abroad in your 3rd year, which would be an amazing experience.
John, can you tell me, what would you like to do when you have completed your degree?
I would love to work for a multinational company that will allow me to travel the world. I love working with numbers and I have strong analytical skills. I am also quite outgoing, which is an important strength to have when you are working for big companies. I am really ambitious. I want to do well in life. So I hope to work for a company that will allow me to achieve this.
Thank you. Now I'd like you to speak for 1 to 2 minutes on a topic. You have 1 minute to prepare your answer. Here is a pencil and paper to make some notes. Here is your topic. I would like you to describe a journey you went on. Your 1 minute to prepare starts now. Please begin. Thank you. Could you start speaking now? I will stop you after 2 minutes.
Okay, well, I like visiting famous places, and whenever I am on holidays, I try to visit new places or places that I've heard about. One such trip that I took with my wife was a trip to Sydney. I would like to talk about this journey to Sydney that we went on earlier this month. My wife and I both wanted to visit Sydney to see places such as the Sydney Opera House and Darling Harbour, as well as visit places like museums, galleries, and the famous Bondi Beach. We purchased our plane tickets, booked into a hotel, packed our bags, and our trip began. We spent a great deal of time before our holiday researching all the interesting places to visit and all the sights to see in Sydney. We went to see the Sydney Opera House and Darling Harbour, but we also went to Sydney Zoo and the Wildlife Park, as well as many beautiful restaurants and cafes. We enjoyed visiting the museums and galleries and taking long walks along the beach in the mornings as the sun rose. We also saw a show in the Opera House which was truly memorable. We very much enjoyed everything we did on our trip to Sydney. Since we had never been to Sydney, everything we saw and did seemed interesting as it was completely new to us. We hope to visit Sydney again soon as we had a great time.
Thank you, John. Okay, I'm now going to ask you a few questions. What is the most memorable place that you've visited in Sydney?
Well, the most memorable place that I visited on my trip to Sydney would have to be the Opera House. It is Australia's most famous building, and you can see why when you see it for the first time. It is unforgettable. It took 16 years to build, which I found fascinating. 16 years is such a long time.
Yes, it is. Can you tell me, what show did you see at the Opera House?
My wife and I saw King Kong. It was amazing. King Kong looked so real. It was interesting looking at the faces of people sitting around us. When King Kong came on stage, there was so much fear in their eyes. It was a fantastic show. Apparently the show took 5 years of planning and over 5 months of rehearsals. I also heard that auditions took place over 3 years.
Yes, I heard it was a great production. Can you tell me about the storyline?
Yes, it's about a gorilla called Kong who lives on an island in the Pacific Ocean with other oversized animals such as dinosaurs. An American film crew capture Kong and take him to New York City to be exhibited as the eighth wonder of the world. Kong escapes and climbs up the Empire State Building with an actress that was offered up to him as a sacrifice. The only reason he climbs the Empire State Building is to try and protect his beloved Anne, the actress. But he falls from the skyscraper. It is quite sad at the end. The actress really loved King Kong, as did he love her.
Thank you, John. That's the end of the speaking test. So here are my final tips to getting the best band score possible. Number 1, practice. Practice is the key to success. Get yourself a set of IELTS exam papers and practice, practice, practice. I guarantee this will improve your band score for the IELTS exam. Number 2, watch your timings. When you're practicing for the IELTS exam, time yourself. You are only allowed 30 minutes for the listening exam and 60 minutes for each of the reading and writing exams. Therefore, you should only give yourself this amount of time when practicing for each of these exams at home. Number 3, be confident. Believe in yourself. I know you can do really well on the IELTS exam and you should believe in yourself too. Before you start each part of the exam, tell yourself, I can do this. Number 4, know the layout of the exam. After completing this course, you should be extremely comfortable with the layout of each part of the exam. So many students score badly on the IELTS exam because they simply do not know the layout of the exam nor what to expect. For example, you know the listening test is worth 40 marks with 40 questions and is played only once. So many students expect to hear the tape at least 2 or 3 times, as this is what happens when they practice listening tests in class. However, this is not the case for the IELTS exam, and thus shows how important it is to understand the layout of the exam. Number 5, speak English. It is important to speak as much English as possible in preparing for your IELTS speaking test.